Cycling over the years has seen some incredible riders win the biggest races, legends of the sport, monsters of the road. Eddy Merckx, Bernardino, Sean Kelly, Fausto Coppi, Jacques Anquetil, Marianne Vos, Beryl Burton, Anna van der Breggen, Jeannie Longo. All amazing cyclists who won amazing races. But it's one thing to build a legendary palmarès over a decade or more, quite another to be utterly dominant in a very condensed period of time, to cram a quantity and quality of wins into a single year. So we're here to find out which rider in cycling history has had the best ever year. Any conversation like this has to start with the GOAT, the greatest of all time, Mr. Eddy Merckx. But which year? You could nearly pick any of them, but two in particular stand out, 1972 and 1974. In 1972, Merckx did the Giro Tour double and also won 3 Monument Classics, Milan-San Remo, Liège-Bastogne-Liège and the Tour of Lombardy, as well as setting that seminal hour record in Mexico City, a record which stood for 12 years. But 1974 wasn't bad either. He did the Giro Tour double again, but also added the rainbow jersey, becoming the first rider ever to win this triple crown of cycling. Merckx, as always, is the standard bearer, the benchmark. So these sensational years of Merckx, I think, set the parameters for anyone else who should be in the frame here. It's really all about Grand Tours, Monument Classics and rainbow jerseys, the big ones. None of your, as Mark Cavendish would say, small races. However, I would add a note for context on that bygone era in general. Back then, the Monument Classics were not a thing. I've scraped around the archives for years trying to determine where that phrase originated from. The best I've managed to find is the first mention was actually by former UCI president Hein Verbruggen in the late 1980s, but it really wasn't a term widely used within cycling until as recently as the mid-2000s. So Merckx was still winning big races, of course, but there wasn't this mad frenzy around 5 specific one-day races the way there is now. With that in mind, perhaps a candidate for the best ever year was as recent as 2021. Tadej Pogačar, he sauntered to his second Tour de France and won 2 Monument Classics, the first rider to do that since Eddy Merckx. But what I think I was trying to say with the Monument Classic caveat a moment ago was that maybe, just maybe, Pog's Monument wins are worth more than Merckx's were, because those races, relatively speaking, are worth more now than they were in Merckx's era. I remember reading an interview before with Tom Boonen's dad, a professional cyclist back in the 1980s, when he described the Tour of Flanders as just one of a number of prestigious one-day races in Flanders. This one just happened to be called the Tour of Flanders. Not sure I agree, but then again, I didn't spawn one of the greatest classics riders of all time. Not yet, anyway. So who else have we got? Can I include a biased nationalistic entry? What about Stephen Roche in 1987? He emulated Merckx's achievements from 1974 by winning the pink, yellow and rainbow jerseys in the same year. But again, depending what way you look at it, maybe Roche's wins were somehow more impressive than Merckx's. Merckx had won all 3 of those races before, multiple times. Roche was winning all 3 for the first time and wasn't expected to win any of them, not really. The Giro was supposed to have been won by his teammate Roberto Vicentini. The Tour de France was supposed to have been won by Pedro Delgado, a far superior climber in a tour with 5 consecutive mountain stages in the final week, and the Worlds was supposed to be for his Irish teammate Sean Kelly. In each of them, Roche won with his head as much as his legs, quite the opposite of the Merckxian way. The cycling writer Ed Pickering would often say that one of the real beauties of cycling is when the strongest rider is beaten by the smartest one, and that was Roche in 1987, an amazing year. Now, let's go back to Tom Boonen's dad. What about Tom Boonen's dad's son, Tom Boonen? In 2005, he did the Flanders-Roubaix double and also won the World Road Race in Madrid, as well as 2 stages of the Tour de France. It was certainly Boonen's best every year, but good enough to challenge Pog or Merckx. It's hard to consider anyone who hasn't also shone in the GC battle of a Grand Tour or 2. Or maybe there is someone who can do just that. What about one final entry on the men's side? Philippe Gilbert in 2011. I remember watching Gilbert that year and he really did just seem to win absolutely everything he wanted to. He won all 3 Ardennes Classics, Amstel Gold, Flèche Wallonne and Liège-Bastogne-Liège, and 4 if you include Brabant's Appeal. He also won Strade Bianche, San Sebastian, the road and time trial national titles, and then turned up to the Tour de France, strutted his way to the opening stage win and took the yellow jersey. For a rider with 0 GC ambitions, it was about as perfect a year as you could have. Maybe if he had won the rainbow jersey too, he could only manage 17th on a course that didn't really suit him. And so what about On the women's side, well, we've just witnessed two separate candidates for greatest ever year. Annemiek van Vleuten just seemed to win everything this year. Well, she didn't just seem to, she did. The Giro, the Tour, the Vuelta, the rainbow jersey of World Road Race champion. She went one better than the triple crowns of Merckx and Roche. But off the road, we have surely seen one of the greatest years ever by Pauline Ferrand-Prévot. She won 4 rainbow jerseys, 4! She won the World Championships in cross-country, short track and marathon on the mountain bike, and also won the inaugural Gravel World Championships too. No rider has ever won 4 rainbow jerseys in the same year before, and she'll be going for a 5th rainbow jersey in cyclocross soon, although that'll be in a different year, namely 2023. The women's side of the sport is a bit trickier to compare across eras because the races haven't been as constant. There haven't always been the staple diet of Grand Tours and Monument Classics. We have them now, but we didn't in decades past. But what about Jeannie Longo? Much like Merckx, you could take your pick of years from the French Grandmaster's career. The pick of the bunch, though, is probably 1989, when she won the previous incarnation of the Women's Tour de France, the World Road Race title, and 2 rainbow jerseys on the track, the points race and individual pursuit. And as we started with the GOAT, Eddy Merckx, let's end with the other GOAT, Marianne Vos. Again, it's not easy to choose the best year, but I'll go for 2012. She won the Olympic road race in London, the World Road Race on home soil in Limburg, the UCI World Cup, the Giro Rosa. She was also cyclocross world champion, and she threw in a sneaky national title on the track in the Madison just to prove she really could do everything. So, what years have I missed? Which riders are you yelling at your screen that you cannot believe I forgot to mention? Anna van der Breggen in 2018, Nicole Cook in 2008, or what about Bradley Wiggins in 2012? Maybe you're really old school and you think it should be Fausto Coppi in 1949. Or do you agree with one of the other ones I've mentioned? Which rider has had the best year ever racing a bicycle? Let me know what you think in the comments down below.